Hello and welcome to Dialogue. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is on a 4-day visit to Beijing and Shanghai, marking the first trip to China by a British Prime Minister in 8 years. He is accompanied by a delegation of around 60 leaders from business, culture and industry as London looks to reset and stabilize UK-China relations, pursue concrete trade and investment outcomes, and project a more consistent approach to Beijing after years of policy swings. This visit comes amid a series of recent trips to China by Western leaders, including those from Finland and Canada. So what do we know so far about Prime Minister Starmer's China visit, and what outcomes can we realistically expect? More broadly, what do these renewed engagements by Western leaders tell us about the state of the world today and about China's growing role in it? Join us for our discussion today, live from Beijing. I'm Xu Qinduo. Well, joining me today are Feng Zhongping, Director of Institute of European Studies at Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, Claire Pearson, International Development Director of Asia at DLA Piper, Professor Ian Beck at London School of Economics and Political Science, and Zhou Bo, Senior Fellow of Center for International Security and Strategy at Tsinghua University. Welcome to the show. So, Zhongping, I will start with you, as we said earlier. So, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's visit followed, several trips by Western leaders, including that of a Canadian Prime Minister and also Prime Minister of Finland. Earlier, you have the President from South Korea, Prime Minister from Ireland, etc. Of course, what we are seeing, let's say globally, is, as the Canadian Prime Minister said in Davos, the old so-called rules-based international order is gone forever and will not come back. So we are in this kind of uncertainty, rising uncertainty, and we are seeing leaders increasing the engagement with China. What do you make of this change? To what degree is about a response to the growing challenges faced by a lot of nations?
Well, Qinduo, you are right. I think, for most countries, they want to come to China to increase the certainties because the world is witnessing growing uncertainties. And for most European countries, and broadly speaking, many U.S. allies, they have a very good reason to enhance economic cooperation with China. For UK particularly, UK economy is very bad in recent years. So they think China is a very important, strong market, and they want to have a good economic trade relations, investment, attract more investment from China. But, at the same time, UK is a special country, close allies of the United States, but also, one of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. So UK, we could say, have a special, responsibility to save the, current international order, to save this multilateral institutions which has been gradually established 80 years ago, since the end of the Second World War. So I think that this is a very good time for China and European countries, and also including other countries, to sit down, to talk about our mutual concerns, common interest. This is why you say many European leaders, Western country leaders are, coming to Beijing. Clay said before the show, Chinese leaders are busy. Indeed.
Yes, Claire. Of course, you are from the UK. You lived in China for many, many years. I mean, you understand both countries. Share with us, what's your observation? What's the purpose of Prime Minister Starmer's China visit here?
I think he's very keen to build a better relationship with China. As you say, there's been an 8-year hiatus where there hasn't been a UK leader in the country. So I think it's an incredibly important trip I was very happy to see that Keir Starmer is coming with a large delegation, a serious delegation, 60 CEOs and a senior minister. So this is obviously a key part of his foreign relations strategy. I think it's a complete reset. Obviously, I've seen a lot of prime ministers, UK prime ministers, come and go. But I feel Keir Starmer's a bit different. I think he's the first Labour leader I've seen here. And I find that he is committed to policies that are consistent with China's focus: common prosperity, green economy, rural revitalisation, economic expansion. Britain's a country that's gone through globalisation in the past, and China's a country that really welcomes globalisation because it has globally competitive products to export. When I arrived in the UK when I arrived in China in 1997, trade between your country, Xuxindor, and mine was about £3.5 billion. Today, it's over 100 billion GBP. China's the fourth largest trading partner of the UK. And it's I feel China today, it's like a butterfly that's coming out of a pupa, out of a chrysalis after the last 5 years travel block. And I feel that when you go to the UK, I feel a new appreciation for China. I was in the village where my mum lives in Audley in Stoke-on-Trent, and I saw a Dolphin BYD car. The ordinary people of the UK welcome the jobs, welcome the economic growth that connecting our countries will contribute. Because China's growing at 5% GDP, and any country globally that is growing, it's sort of hooked its wagon to the Chinese year of the horse, if you like. So to go fast, to go far, you need Chinese innovation, you need Chinese infrastructure. So we need to embed and integrate our countries so we can have a win-win outcome in many sectors. I was in Shenzhen last week, and I saw just what typifies the best of 1 + 1 = 3 in the China-UK relation. I saw DJI Drones had developed an incredible sky building in conjunction with Foster and Partners, Norman Foster. So there you had the best of Chinese innovation, DJI cameras in conjunction with Hasselblad, and you had UK architecture firm collaborating to create a building whose name is Limitless Innovation, Darjiang Innovation. And I feel that if we get the China-UK relationship right, we could have two countries that appreciate collaborative opportunities to create the jobs for common prosperity together.
Benefiting the people from both sides. Ian Inbeg from London here. Of course, the Prime Minister Starmer talked about his critical of this flipping of say UK's China policy from, in his words, so-called golden age to an ice age. He's looking at a strategic and consistent relationship with China. In order to be successful, to form such a relationship, what do we need to do? What kind of requirement is it from the Chinese side or from the UK side, domestically or internationally here?
Well, the first two speakers are correct. There is a big economic dimension to this, and that getting that economic relationship correct is going to be central to improving the UK-China relationship. But those of us who live in the UK also see a different story at times about suspicion of China is probably the best way of putting it. I know we're going to come on to it later, but the new embassy is one element of this. There's the accusation that China is ramping up its espionage activities in the UK. There is concern in the UK that China didn't quite live up to the deal over Hong Kong with ramifications for the quality of the relationship. So that's the downside. It's the reason that the Ice Age came in after the Golden Age, when David Cameron and Xi Jinping were having a pint of beer together. I noticed that Xi Jinping drank it more quickly than Cameron did. Maybe he's a better beer drinker than the British Prime Minister was then. So that up and down is central to it. But there's clearly an external factor here. We can't disguise it. It's called the White House. The White House under Trump has become so capricious that European leaders in the last couple of weeks have started to think we cannot go on, using an old Chinese word, kowtowing to Donald Trump. We have to think in terms of building relationships with other parts of the world. There's really only one country that's trying to disrupt the global economic order, and that is the United States. Much of the rest of the world would like to restore the World Trade Organization to its proper function, would like to maintain the rules-based international system. So if there's one disruptor and you become fed up with that disruptor, then the obvious way to look outside is to say, China wants to maintain a stable relationship with the rest of the world. So does the UK and the other European leaders who are coming to China, and Mark Carney from Canada. So I think you have to look at all these dimensions simultaneously.
That's right. Well, if we focus on the bilateral relationship for a while, Zhou Bo, as Ian mentioned, of course, when it comes to China relationship in the UK, you do have people who are supportive of more engagement with China, and then you have this, I would say, strong criticism of the Starmer government for coming to China. Like the approval of the Chinese embassy, the construction of the new embassy. There are a lot of criticism, and then the issues over Hong Kong, etc. But from a Chinese point of view, a lot of them are simply the domestic affairs of China. China can't tolerate interference from the UK or from any other countries. The embassy, even from the Chinese side, we don't think that should be a problem at all. Construction of a new embassy, people say the largest in European countries. That's because UK is important. If UK is not that important, I don't think China will have a large embassy in the UK. What do you make of those criticisms in terms of developing the relationship there?
Well, first of all, Europe, including UK, always believe it stands on more high ground when it talks about human rights and these kind of issues. But it's interesting when I read America's National Defense Report a few hours ago, when it described the so-called liberal international order as a cloud castle, right? So this is interesting because the United States actually heads the whole the West. So now we come to the role of Britain. So how much, could really, Britain accuse China on all these matters, which we consider to be domestic issues? On the embassy issue, I believe it's just ridiculous. We bought it 7 years ago, right? And Britain also wants to expand its embassy in China. So what is the fuss about all these kind of issues, right? Just now, John Ping, mentioned quite a few things which I totally agree. But I would say that China now would look really like the eye of the storm. That explains why so many European leaders are coming to China, because all around them it is just but a storm, right? So I think we should just set aside these differences, which certainly can be talked about, and focus on the major issues. And the major issue is to do business with China as soon as possible, as many as possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, speak of that, Zhong Ping. Pragmatically speaking, what area do you see, as a potential? Probably the China and the UK can work together, can explore the potential, so both sides can benefit from that kind of cooperation. Real interest for both sides.
Yes, Xinduo. China, UK have been, focused on trade, economic cooperation for many years. This cooperative relationship has produced, benefits for both sides. We all agree with that. But in the past 5 years, maybe 6 years, this cooperative relations has been interrupted by, three major factors. One is the Ukraine crisis, Russia-Ukraine conflict. Second, probably is America's foreign policy towards China. UK has to pay great attention on this. Thirdly, Yin has just mentioned about, Zhou Bo has also mentioned about the domestic environment in UK. This made a negative perception on China. So all these things together has interrupted a normal, good, productive economic relations. So from this Prime Minister's visit, we should focus on to rebuild economic ties as the most priority. How? I think we should focus on great transitions, energy transitions. I think most European countries, UK, which I know quite well, they want to have a great transition successfully. They would look at China for financial corporations, great financial corporations, technological corporations. I think this is probably most priority. Secondly, I'm still thinking, to increase the high university and higher educational links between our two countries. UK is an attractive place for many Chinese students. They, when they finish their bachelor degrees, they want to go to foreign countries. They want to go to UK to promote their studies. I think Oxford, Cambridge still is a very attractive places. I think this is two things which I think we should remember in our mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, Claire, following on that in that direction, of course, if you look at the delegation, it includes business people, of course, from the financial world, the business community, of course, the car companies, life science, energy firms, and also people, representatives, to explore opportunities in the Chinese sports and the cultural scenes there. So it's quite inclusive. So these are also the area probably. I think the UK is looking at cooperating with the Chinese side.
Yeah, I just got an inquiry actually from a football club yesterday a UK football club wanting to play in China. And we're also talking to a singer from the UK who wants to come here. So I'll be honest with you, Shushino, it's a very broad relationship. There's a very broad-based relationship between China and the UK. And I think, in a way, China's got its hard power in order. You've had engineers in charge of the government and you've built 55,000 kilometers of high-speed rail to catalyze growth in your own country. And I think it's kind of harvest time for the Chinese economy. You grew 5% last year. Now, I think the UK, okay, we've had difficult relationship in the past. And I think partially it's because we haven't been engaging enough for the last 5 years. You often imagine the worst about people and then you meet them and you have a cup of tea and you think, oh, actually, they're a bit like me. So I think people are going to find more and more commonalities for trade. I sort of call it the get rich, get righteous, get real relationship. For a start, the new Chinese embassy is in the old Royal Mint. So I think there's going to be real opportunities to help with RMB internationalization. The UK could be such a useful bridge for China to the world. Trump, he's not a bad guy. He's just sometimes a bit misunderstood. And I think the same with Xi Jinping. And it's like a dinner party where you don't know how to do the seating plan. I think you can put UK in the middle because they don't really annoy anyone. We're quite small. We're about 5% of the population of China. So if we've got anything to sell, let's sell it in China because there's a huge middle class. And so I feel that there's such complementary economies between China and the UK. You don't want to get it wrong. I like that Chinese saying, you don't know which cow's going to give the milk. And I think at the moment, I don't know if it's the Trump cow or the China cow, but I think, everyone's welcome in the field. And I think UK needs to learn how to be a good sheepdog.
Yes, of course. If you look at the positive side, Ian, as you earlier mentioned, of course there are challenges domestically and also from Washington. If you compare the visit to the one done by Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, when he went back to the country, of course, Trump threatened with 100% tariffs on all imports from Canada to the U.S. do you foresee any kind of potential pressure from Washington on London if deals were reached between China and the UK? Somehow Washington is not happy with that?
We can't exclude it. There is obviously very bad chemistry between Carney and Trump, whereas between the British Prime Minister and other members of the British government and the American administration, some of the chemistry is relatively good. You can't judge in advance what Trump is going to do tomorrow, let alone next week or the week after that, because you recall what happened just a few days ago. Trump said 10% tariffs on all European countries, including the UK, simply because they weren't firm enough in backing him in buying Greenland. And then a week later, torn up, as we discussed in a previous program. So it's very difficult to predict Trump. It's a mistake even to think that there is something fundamental that you can get right with Trump and get wrong with Trump, because he will change his mind. That said, the UK is always in this awkward position that it regards the transatlantic relationship with the US as fundamental to its security and foreign policy. China is different, because China isn't offering anything to the UK in terms of security. It's more distant. There isn't the linguistic and traditional relationships between the two countries, who, after all, fought together in world wars in the 20th century. So overcoming that sense that the primary relationship between the UK and other parts of the world has to be with the US, and then everybody else comes second, third, or fourth, is a difficult transition in UK politics. But as I said earlier, I think we're beginning to see that. There is increasing pushback against Trump's more curious or eccentric or idiosyncratic approaches to global international relations. European leaders, I sense, collectively are saying, enough. We need to stop this. We need to say Trump cannot rule the world in his capricious manner, because we need our own relationships. So it's in that sense that China becomes not so much an alternative as a way of circumventing Trump. And I think that's fundamental to our understanding of what's going on, both with this visit to China by the UK delegation and the other delegations already been and who are coming in the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joe Bo, do you also agree this is a part of the overall broad-based transformation of Western nations, because of Trump, or because of the relationship with the U.S. now, being put in an uncertain state? So you see the Canadian Prime Minister here, UK Prime Minister, and upcoming is the German Chancellor. Do you see that's part of the change?
That definitely is the change. I attended a Munich Security Conference last year, and the theme is multipolarization, right? The irony is now everybody would agree to this, including the United States. Yeah, when Rubio said the unimonopolement is abnormal. So nobody disagree to multipolarization. The point is, what you are going to do in this multipolarized world, right? And I believe the United States is in serious decline. And actually, it's not because I'm saying this as a Chinese. Actually, the largest declinist is Trump himself. And he became American president because he described the United States in carnage. And he's the man, chose the man to make America great again. But the point is, it should not be at the cost of any other country, right? To make so many threats, to flagrantly invade another country. This is not what people have expected of the United States. And that brings a disappointment of the whole West, except probably including some Americans. And so that explains why they're coming to China. Because I believe China right now, as I said before, looks like the eye in the storm. And if we put it in the larger picture, the whole Indo-Pacific region is where the center of gravity is, right? So even the U.S., would want to catch the train that is moving fast. And that is why all the leaders are here.
So you see that as a trend that will last for some time?
I think so. You see, the good question is, nobody will be in the White House forever, right? I think then, what should we agree on? We should agree on one thing. There is no such thing as a liberal international order in the world at all. Because the world actually from the time immemorial up till now is the same international order. It is composed of different civilizations, different religions, different societies, yeah, and different ideologies. That is international order. And the people were misled to believe that, okay, the time after Second World War is liberal international order. How can that be? The only time that looks somewhat like this order is the time after dissolution of the Soviet Union and before the full rise of China, which is about 15 years' time. So now it's time for us to forget this kind of, this kind of excuses and to believe that the international order is the same. Mm-hmm. And we need a joint efforts to make this world better.
Yes.
Yeah. Or if not better, but less dangerous.
Right. Zhongping, of course, I think people agree or disagree with the order, whether there's order, whether there's the end of the, so-called rules-based international order. But anyway, how does Beijing, how does China, look at the relationship with the UK and the European Union in general?
I think, we have to live with, we are going to live in a world which I call post-America order. It's not just, we have to get used to this, post-modern, post-United States world. Europe and China can do things together to still make the multipolar world, multilateralism works. I think that is the job China, Europe can do apart from the economic, trade cooperations. We could sit down talk about how to deal with this, post-United States, post-America world.
Well, with that, we're coming to the end for today's show. Many thanks to our guests. You can also find us on the CGTN app on YouTube. I'm Xu Qinduo. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.